Hello, just Gem here and welcome, or indeed welcome back to my channel. I was always going to do a bit of a review of 2024, but then I I didn't stumble across, I'm subscribed to Erica, so I get the notifications. But Erica did a roundup video and it was a makeup in review tag, and I thought that's a really nice, compact way of reviewing the year, so I'm going to do it too. I'll put a link to Erica's video, and then I will try to remember to mention who she got the idea from originally, because it's in her description too. Yeah, let's do it. I've got the prompts on my phone, so let's get going. Brand I fell in love with in 2024. All of the indie brands. Or all of the indie brands. Some of the indie brands I'd heard of from 2023 and even a bit earlier. I think the only one that I had really used was Odin's Eye. And this year I was introduced to Cosmic, Nomad, Titanium Foxes, Blend Bunny, Artitude, Gourmand Girls, some of which I've used much more than others. So I think out of all of the indie brands, I now own the most Cosmic. Cosmic is heavy in my collection. Loving Cosmic, love their formula, love the price point. So reasonably priced for what you get. It's phenomenal. It really is. I think next up is Nomad. I think I've only recently kind of cracked the Nomad formula. I think I've always enjoyed the mattes, but I'm still kind of working out the shimmers and the best way to get the most out of the shimmers in those palettes. But on the whole, I love the whole travel theming around Nomad. I like the embossings that they do. I like the fact that there's a portion that goes to a charity of some description. I just, really enjoying Nomad. The next one that I've fallen in love with this year is Blend Bunny. Longing is one of my top palettes of 2024. Longing is stunning. The shimmers in Longing are just incredible. Artitude, I mean, I'm partway through filming with one of the latest releases from Artitude. I've got Urban Neutrals on my eyes at the moment. Loving Artitude. I've only now got 3 palettes from them. I kind of want to go backwards a little bit, maybe grab another one, and I'm really curious to see what Artitude do in 2025. Who else is there? Titanium Foxes. I've just picked up Grackle Chat and Poppy Quiet, and I'm regretting that I didn't just pick up Poppy Storm at the time, but I am going to pick up Poppy Storm. So much smaller catalogue at the moment from Titanium Foxes, but they're up there. Were they new last year? That might bring me, could be an answer for one of the questions later. I'll come back to that. And Gourmand Girls, I've only tried one palette from them, Calavera, and I was pleasantly surprised by that one. I very nearly didn't pick that up at all, but I'm very glad I did. Love the versatility in that. Quite enjoyed the formula in that as well. Haven't played with that too much yet. That's in a video that I've done very, very recently, but looking forward to using that a lot. So yeah, all of the indie brands. I was very much a kind of mainstream / high-end person before, and this year it's been all about the indie brands. I think I've only bought 2 items from Pat McGrath and nothing else from any of the mainstream brands, at least not palette wise. Danessa Myricks. Danessa Myricks. But it's been all about the indie brands. I don't think I've tried a single dud. Would Made by Mitchell be an indie brand? But of those indie brands I've just mentioned, loving them. And speaking of Pat McGrath, I would say that that is a brand that I've maybe not broken up with, but that I've distanced myself from. There was a time when I was massively into Pat McGrath. And I'm not going to lie, I think a part of that is due to being so impressed and in awe of a black woman doing so well in this industry. A high-end brand at that. I missed the initial kind of introduction to Pat McGrath when she released the Motherships 1, 2 and 3. And I don't actually own those, but I think eventually they're going to be ones that I will go back and get. I own, I think, 8, 9, 10, 11. And then I have some of the holiday palettes that she's done. And I have bought the latest holiday palettes, Luminous Legends, and one of the Quints that was released for the holiday just gone. I haven't used them yet. They were a Black Friday purchase, and it's in my pile of palettes to use. But Pat McGrath has been sort of disappointing lately, to be honest. There's been no innovation. I think I'll post one of the early videos I did last year, and it was a plea to Pat McGrath, and it was just talking about how it was a brand that I used to love so much, and I think of all the palettes that I own the most Pat McGrath palettes, like by a fair way. I do need to count all my palettes for another video, but Pat McGrath is the front runner by quite some margin. I think Cosmic might be catching up, and if Cosmic keep producing the way they are producing, they're going to overtake Pat. But yeah, Pat's lacking innovation, and there was just a lot of repetition, a lot of pink, a lot of gold, and no mothership in 2024. I was really looking forward to a mothership so that I could see if Pat could come out of this rut that she seems to be stuck in. And I'm saying Pat, I don't even know how involved she is in the company these days. When it comes to the likes of Pat McGrath, Charlotte Tilbury, Natasha Denona, I'm curious how hands-on they actually are. I get the impression that Pat McGrath has stepped away a considerable amount. So I'm wondering if that is what's led to, quite frankly, the staleness of the brand. I wouldn't go as far as to say I've broken up with them. There is a chance for a reconciliation. Let's see what 2025 brings. But 2024 and even before 2024 was a letdown when it comes to Pat McGrath. Definitely. What's next? Makeup product or products I'm glad I didn't buy in 2024. All the Natasha Denona releases, to be honest. And again, I know I did it. I filmed a video where I was talking about why I hadn't picked up the Golden palette. I think it's called Golden because the original one was called the Gold palette. And where Pat's perhaps lacking in a bit of originality and innovation, I think Natasha does have that. But the issue with Natasha Denona is that a lot of her palettes lack the depth that I would prefer them to have, and they're almost too monochromatic. There's a time and a place for a monochromatic palette, but sometimes I feel like Natasha Denona leans into that a little bit too much. Some of my favourite palettes are from Natasha Denona, Metropolis, My Dream, but in 2024 there was nothing from the brand that really stood out to me. Roxa I very nearly went for, and I think, funnily enough, on my skin tone it would be quite purple, but on a lot of swatches that I was seeing it seemed to lean very pink. Goes on my stomach, I hope you can't hear that. Yeah, it seemed to lean very pink, so I wasn't 100% convinced by Roxa. I could be swayed to pick it up later, I think. Like now I've seen it on more people with a deeper skin tone and seen that it does actually lean more purple, and it's more purple on that deeper skin tone, I think, than it is the lighter one. So I think a lot of people who thought it was going to be purple and have a fair skin tone were a bit disappointed because of how it appears on their skin. But yeah, I'm kind of glad that I didn't purchase any Natasha Denona products. Makeup products I'm glad I did buy in 2024. See the answer to question 1. Every single indie palette I bought. Yeah, I don't think there's a single one, apart from one I will mention later, that I was unimpressed with. Yeah, I think every single indie palette that I've bought in 2024. Overhyped makeup releases in 2024. I think I'm gonna put these together. So overhyped and worth the hype, because I think there's potential for some overlap here. I personally think that the NYX Buttermelt blushes are 100% worth the hype. For the price point, the packaging, formula, longevity and pigmentation is outstanding. NYX have knocked it out of the park. It's incredible for the price point. And that's one of the things that definitely blew up on TikTok. So I can understand why a lot of people would look at that release and say it was overhyped. I don't think it was definitely hyped, but because it's that good, I don't think it was overhyped. I think the hype was warranted. The hype was in line with the performance. That's my opinion. But then at the same time, if you've tried the NYX Buttermelt blushes, you're probably sitting there thinking it's the most overhyped product of 2024. And if you've tried them and you didn't like it, I can fully get behind that. I can totally understand it. For me, the hype was fully justified for that product. I'm trying to think if there's anything. Oh yeah, the other thing that I think falls into that category for me is the Danessa Myricks Lightwork 6, the Freedom palette. To me, that was stunning, and I think that got the hype because not only are the shades stunning, but it was the packaging and the innovation in that packaging that set it aside from other mainstream brands. I wouldn't necessarily say that it set it apart from indie brands as such, because indie brands are known for their special shades, and maybe the Lightwork 6 is more impressive to me because I am new to the indie scene. But to me, that Danessa Myricks Lightwork 6 palette is beautiful, and I remember especially when I first got it, just playing around with the magnets and stacking up the different pans, the quints in there. No, not the quints. That quints is 5. I did this last time. Sextuplets. That's just clunky. But the groups of 6, just playing around, stacking them, moving them about, moving them back again. I love the innovation of that packaging, and I think that that's one of the reasons it's been hyped as much as it is. Not even necessarily for the shades in the palette, but because of the packaging that those shades are in. So that's what I'd say on those. Why am I out of breath? I'm so unfit. Like, I ran up my stairs to come and film and I'm still out of breath. It's ridiculous. My battery died, so while I changed it, I used the opportunity to try and catch my breath. I don't think I fully caught it, but let's crack on. Best new indie brand in 2024. I'm not 100% sure if Titanium Foxes only came out in 2024, but I'm about 90% sure. And if that's the case, I'm going to give it to Titanium Foxes. admittedly, I have only played with Grackle Chat, which is the very latest release, the Christmas release, if you will. But if that's anything to go by, if that's setting the bar, if the Poppy Quiet and Poppy Storm palettes are both on a par, and that's what they're going to be producing this year and beyond, Titanium Foxes. 100% Titanium Foxes. I will also link my first impressions to Grackle Chat below, and I will be doing a video later on this month that's going to feature Poppy Quiet, but definitely looking forward to playing with Grackle Chat some more. And I've not touched Poppy Quiet yet. Again, that's in my ever-growing pile of new palettes to try, but I'm getting there. Worst makeup release of 2024. Worst makeup release that I purchased, hands down, goes to the Made by Mitchell Sunset Chaser palette. I don't know if the hype around Made by Mitchell is just so high that when he does release a dud, it just goes under the radar. Because I'll have to have another look at the reviews on the Clock app, but I was so disappointed in that palette. I managed to get some decent, looks that from a distance looked alright, but if you looked up close, they were just patchy and horrible. The shimmers were lackluster, the mattes were mediocre, and it was just, in my opinion, the biggest waste of money for 2024 for me. And it wasn't even that expensive a palette. But yeah, that's definitely the worst that I bought. The worst that I kind of avoided, I don't know if there's anything that came out in 2024 where I looked at it and thought, well, that's rubbish, why are they bothering with that? There probably was something, but it's not coming to mind at the moment. No. But that Sunset Chaser palette, it was not good. One thing I don't want to see in the makeup world in 2025, non-stop launches. I want brands to slow down, okay? I want one palette per quarter, per brand. That's all I want. I don't, Glamlight are just, they're on this conveyor belt, and I feel like they're just throwing palettes at you, and you're there trying to grab at all these releases, and it's too much. And that's just Glamlight. Nomad has been on my radar for quite some time, but it's only this year that I've tried them. But even Nomad, I feel, maybe it's because I've gone backwards a little bit, and when I think about how many Nomad palettes I've bought this year, it's not just been things that have come out this year, it's also been things that have come out in previous years. But even Nomad, I'm just like, can you slow it down a little bit, please? Cosmic, how many did they do this year? Was it 5? I think it was. I don't think they had anything before the Culturals Neutrals launch, and then they had Undergrowth, Sinister, and 'Tis the Season. So I think they did 5. So that's not too bad. But they had a bit of a quiet first half of the month. Those releases all came in the latter half. So if they had been spread out throughout the year, that would have been pretty ideal. But they came quick and fast from June onwards. Blend Bunny. You'd just, not that I bought the Ellis collab, but I might, I don't know. But You had Ellis, you barely had enough time to digest that, and then they had the Little Miss collection, and then they had Robert's collection, and then they had the Lynn's collection, and it's too much. I think brands need to give us time. We need to buy a palette, use the palette, test the palette, enjoy the palette, get to know the palette, experiment with the palette, draw some conclusions about the palette, so then we can make an informed decision when the next release comes. We can think to ourselves, oh yeah, I really liked X palette that they released, and if it's the same formula, or it's a similar formula, or they're claiming that they've improved the formula, you think to yourself, I'm going to get it because I'm curious. Right now, it's a gauntlet of having releases thrown at you and desperately trying to keep up. In 2025, I want that to slow down. But to be perfectly honest, if anything, I think it's only going to ramp up. So, mind your wallets, guys. Be mindful. I'm very much going to be of the mindset that just because it's released doesn't mean I need to get it. There's time. There is time. Pick a palette, let it digest, mull over it, get to know it, ready to purchase something else when you are ready, not when one of the brands throws their next launch at you. So that's what I would really love to see in 2025, but to be honest, I'm not holding my breath about that at all. And then lastly, let me double check. One thing I do want to see in the makeup world in 2025, I want to see that pendulum fully swing back into the bold, bright, colourful looks that we used to have. I think it's coming. I think we had that shift to uber sort of neutral looks, and I think it's been brewing, and I think that pendulum is slowly kind of winging its way back. I want it to go full swing. I want to see bright, bold, funky, flary, extravagant looks. I want to see the colour. I want all of the colour. I want the full spectrum. And this comes from someone who has probably embraced the neutral side, like I used to be in that very, very colourful era, and I still am quite. I mean, these are hardly muted tones, are they? I'm ready for full-on bold colours again. That's what I want to see this year. Bring it on, bring it on. I've thoroughly enjoyed the makeup scene in 2025. Starting my channel last year has got me sort of a bit more involved. I think my finger's a little bit more on the pulse than it used to be. Still not all the way there. There's still things that pass me by. But I've really enjoyed discovering indie brands and to a certain extent getting to be a bit more familiar with the owners. Like, not that I'm claiming they're my best mates or anything, but I just feel like with indie brands you get more of a feel for the owner. They're not these like faceless, huge mainstream brands. You know, you've got Maggie, who's the owner of Blend Bunny, and you've got Faye, who's at Cosmic, and you've got Rooks, who's at Artitude, and you've got Clara, who's at Titanium. Who's at Urban Decay? I don't know. Who's at, I mean, Kat Von D. It's not Kat Von D anymore. It's just KVD. Who? Charlotte Tilbury, Pat McGrath, Natasha Denona. Yeah, they're the face of the brand, but as I'd mentioned earlier, how involved are they really at this point? I just feel like I feel more invested in indie brands. I feel more like I want indie brands to succeed. I couldn't care less if Urban Decay sold lots of palettes. I'm not bothered. But I'm kind of rooting for Maggie, and I'm rooting for Clara, and I'm rooting for Rooks and I'm rooting for Faye. I want them to do well, whereas, like, you know, who gives a shit? I mean, Rihanna's a billionaire at this point. I'm pretty sure she's a... Like, don't get me wrong, I like Rihanna, that's probably a bit extreme, but you get what I mean, I think. Yeah, you get what I mean. I've just really enjoyed 2024 and the releases that indie brands have put out there. I'm really keen to see what they do in 2025. My only wish is that they do it slowly. Please, slowly. Stellar 2024. Excited for 2025. As always, thank you for taking the time to watch. I hope that you've enjoyed this video. If you have, don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, and hopefully I'll see you again in a video in a not too distant future. Take care. Bye. And a high-end brand at that one, like at that... What's the phrase I'm trying to say here?